very concerned about our U.S. troops being sent over to act as even humanitarians because that is not their job or role, but also that if Vladimir Putin is successful in Ukraine, that the sanctions were not the sanctions that are totally crippling to his economy, that he will then look to other countries.
Is there intelligence to suggest that President Putin will advance beyond Ukraine?
You don't need intelligence to tell you that that's exactly what President Putin wants. He's made clear that he'd like to reconstitute the Soviet empire. Short of that, he'd like to reassert a sphere of influence around neighboring countries that were once part of the Soviet bloc. Now, when it comes to a threat beyond Ukraine's borders, there's something very powerful standing in his way. That's Article 5 of NATO. An attack on one is an attack on all.
If Vladimir Putin were to attack, say, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, three of the countries that border directly on him or either on Russia or Belarus, and Article 5 was implemented, troops get in harm's way real quick.
We've got to stand for NATO. If NATO members and Article 5 are not enforced, then I fear the collapse of the whole system.
You realize how close he will be to being able to pull something like that off, or trying to.
Our military, instead of winning battles, is doing humanitarian work right on the border of Ukraine, of a war zone. And I wanted you to address that because I think there are a lot of Americans who are just concerned that our U.S. troops could be being put in position right now. And if Putin decides to continue this past Ukraine, they're going to be right there.
We have got to build up NATO and build up Europe in terms of encourage them to take responsibility for their own defense. NATO cannot be a facade. If we don't stand up together for all of NATO together, then, of course, there's no existence of NATO. That's why it's so important for NATO to be imposing so that Russia would not dare test it.
You talk about your anger that we're even at this point, but then we've got President Biden when he was talking to the media. Well, I'll just play it for you. It's pretty unbelievable what he said.
No one expected the sanctions to prevent anything from happening. It has to show, this is going to take time, and we have to show resolve so he knows what's coming. And so the people of Russia know what he's brought on them. That's what this is all about.
President Biden's whole view, remember this whole time diplomacy is going to work, we still have time. But yet then he admitted after the war began that, you know what, we put all these sanctions in place. We knew it wasn't actually going to prevent anything.
I believe that official Washington has now come into this cycle of crisis and shoving the State Department aside and immediately going for troops and military action. And the State Department exists to avoid war.
Joe Biden said the U.S. would pose an unprecedented set of sanctions if Putin invaded. The Germans said no, so Biden didn't go with swift sanctions.
I think we have a real problem with Germany. I think we've been saying this for about 4 years. The Germans have left the Western alliance. They want a transatlantic alliance that doesn't have a Western-facing flavor. It's a slap in the face to Americans to see the Germans reject the Western idea, continue going towards the Russian pipeline, and really, I think they're undermining Europe, NATO, and the Western alliance.
It is what is raging American people. We're trying to get back to normal at home. And that's all the congressman is saying with all that.
We don't even get a break.
Is that we don't even
just
get,
as COVID starts winding down,
as the blue states and the blue cities start opening up again, you feel like you could plan some travel, plan some events, and be certain of it.
But it looks
war breaks out in Europe, and it could be an expansionist war.